Welcome to the joy of upcycling. We're going to make this cute little house using bits of cardboard. These are the supplies that you need. You can alternate product and send me emails if you have questions about it. You can also get this list from the PDF. We're going to start with 4 tags. 2 of them we are going to score vertically 2 3/4 inches from the right hand side. The other 2 we're going to score vertically 2 inches from the right hand side. On the tags that we scored 2 inches from the right hand side, you're going to use a pencil and a ruler and mark 4 inches from the bottom and then 1 inch away from that first mark, so 5 inches from the bottom. Then you're going to cut off the tops of both of those tags 5 inches from the bottom, and then you're going to cut off the corner piece that's in the top left. So you should end up with 2 pieces that look like the bottom right hand photo. For the second 2 tags, you're going to mark 4 inches from the bottom again. Then you're going to mark the center of the 2 3/4 portion of the tag, and that's about 1 3/8 inch, and you're going to make a little mark underneath the tag's hole. Then you're going to use a ruler and draw a line from the sides to that center just underneath the hole, and then you're going to cut off the peak and then the side tab so that you end up with 2 pieces that look like the photo. When you adhere the house pieces, you're going to adhere them with the glue on the outside of the tab, and then that outside of the tab is going to be glued to the inside of the house on all of the pieces. We're going to start with the first piece that has the peak. The glue is on the side of the tab. Glue that to the side of the house that has the tab on the bottom and on the left hand side, so that when you flip it over it looks like the picture on the bottom right. You want that tab to be on the bottom of the house and the peak on the top left. You'll adhere the second side of the house by gluing on the tab and then pressing that to the inside of that first peak with the tab hanging off the bottom again. Then the second side with the peak is going to be glued to the second side of the house like you see in the photo on the bottom right. You're going to end by adding glue to the last side of the house and then pressing the front of the house to that first to the side of the house. Make sure that it sticks down really well because you can't press it against your work surface. You're going to then fold the tabs underneath and then you can stand your house up. For the roof, we're going to take 2 more tags and we are going to measure 3 inches from the bottom of one and 3.5 inches from the bottom of the other, and go ahead and cut at those measurements. Then on the piece that is cut 3.5 inches long, you're going to score horizontally 1/2 inch from the edge. So both of the sides should be 3 inches tall. Then you're going to add glue to that score mark, to the score tab on the end, and you're going to adhere the first piece to the second so that they are even, 3 inches on both sides with that 1/2 inch overlapping. You're now going to take that whole piece that you have glued together, mark 1/2 inch off of both of the sides vertically, and you're going to score down both sides. Then you're going to go ahead and fold those in and burnish the edges, and then you're going to cut at that center score where you first put the 2 pieces together from the edge just to the score line, and this is going to make it so you can fold the roof into a triangle. Now we're going to decoupage the base of the house. You want your papers to be approximately 5 inches tall or 4.5 inches tall. You want it to be just long enough so that it'll overlap. You're going to use small sections of the fast finish decoupage because it does dry really fast. Paint it on in about an inch, 1.5 inch strip. Put the paper over it, then paint over the top of the paper. Then you're going to just repeat that until you continue throughout the whole house. So here you can see I've lifted the paper up, paint another strip down, push the paper down, and then paint over the top. So just continue all the way around, and it might be easier before you finish the second front of the house and the second side of the house by cutting the paper off so that you have the edge or the side of the house and the point cut down. Otherwise, it might be a little bit hard to reach it. Now we're going to dry brush. You're just going to use a dry paintbrush and some white paint and just lightly brush over the entire outside of the house, but you still want to be able to see the text through the paint. To add the roof, you're going to put glue on the inside of those scored tabs, and then you're going to just place it right down on top of the house. It might be helpful to use a bone folder to press the top of the roof into the side panel of the roof on the top so that you make sure that it is stuck down really well. Then you're going to use the remaining white paint and paint the underside of the roof. For the shingles, you're going to cut about 30 to 40 pieces of scrap cardboard to about 1 inch tall by 3/4 inch wide. They don't have to be exact, you just want them taller than they are wide. I inked them with Sparrow and Blue Jay chalks, and you can use any colors that you would like. And then you're going to cut several of those shingles in half vertically, and those are going to go on the front of the roof. To add the shingles, you're going to add glue to the roof for the front and back, and you're going to start to lay those shingles that we cut vertically from the bottom to the top, overlapping that bottom edge so that the entire front is going to be covered. Do that for both sides, and then repeat it on the back. When you're putting the full shingles on, it helps if you start on the edges, the front and back edges. Start from the bottom and work your way up to the top, and make sure that you overlap the bottom edge with the top edge of the shingle before it. And then when you're doing the center, you can do both of those at the same time and just work your way up to the top, like you see in the photos below. For the chimney, you're going to use 3 of those shingles. You're going to hold 2 of the shingles back to back so the corrugation is on the outside of both of those shingles. And then you're going to cut the other one in half vertically like you see in the first photo. You're going to hold those 2 shingles back to back at the edge of your roof at the angle you want your chimney to be in. And then you're just going to use your scissors and kind of eyeball cut through both sides of the chimney together while they're at the angle that you like. You should have pieces like you see in the last photo, and you're going to cut the sides down so that the right side is the length of the short and the left side is the length of the long side of the chimney. Now we're going to ink the inside of the chimney, and I used Midnight Chalks. You could use any type of ink that you would like. Then you're going to glue all the pieces together, and I used a fast drying glue, but it might be easier if you use a hot glue gun for this. You want to make sure your chimney is dry before you start inking the outside so it won't fall apart. This is where hot glue would be good, but once it is ready, then you're going to ink it. And I used pomegranate and Sparrow inks on the outside to give it a red brick kind of a look. And then I used glue again on the base of the chimney, but hot glue would work really well for that, and then adhered it to the top of the roof. These are some of the extra pieces that are going to go on the house. I used a round scallop die from Spellbinders and some extra piece of tag to do the back of the window. Then I used that same size die on cardboard, and I cut that out in a scallop circle. And then I took the smaller die from that same set and cut the center out of the cardboard. You can't do both of them at the same time usually. Sometimes you can. But then after you get the frame of the window done, you're going to want to cut 2 thin pieces of cardboard. Those are going to be the window panes. And then you're going to want to cut a door. And you can either just cut the decorative edge of a door with a die and then cut across the bottom to make sure it's flat, or use a piece that's a little bit shorter than your die so that you have that flat edge. But you do need the flat part so that it will be flush with the bottom of your house. Then I cut 2 ovals that will be the base of the house, and both of those were out of cardboard as well. And I used the largest die from Floral Ovals from Spellbinders. I inked the back of the window with Blue Jay chalks. Then I inked the window frame and the window panes with Jasmine Mixed Media inks. Then I glued the panes down in a cross and then glued the frame over the top of those. Then I glued the whole window to the top of the house so that the edges of it hit the edges of the shingles on the roof. I stamped foliage all around the base of the house using my branch stamp and sage chalks. You do want to use a chalk ink for this. If you use a pigment ink, it may blend or smear later. So use a fast drying ink and just ink the stamp all the way around, or stamp the image all the way around your house. It does help if you put your hand on the inside and don't use a block on your stamp, because you may need to press in areas that are uneven and a block will not allow you to do that. I inked the door with Blue Jay chalks, but you could use any color that you would like. Then I pierced a hole and used a gem brad for the door handle. Then I used foam squares on the back of the door and adhered it to the front of the house. For the base, I inked the whole thing with Jasmine Mixed Media inks and then a little bit around the edges with Blue Jay chalks. I flipped the base over and then marked the sides with a pencil where the house was going to be sitting, and I used a craft knife to cut through those holes. Then I took the tabs that we had on the bottom of the house and slipped them through those slits in the cardboard, glued the bottom, and glued the tabs down. I then made 3 flowers like we did in our last lesson. Then I pierced a hole in the base to the left of the front door and put the first flower through. When it was at the length that I wanted, I bent the bottom of the wire so that it would stay in place. I then pierced 2 more holes on the sides of where that first hole was, and then put the other 2 flowers in at different levels, and I crossed them over each other just so that it would look more appealing to the eye. Once everything was in the position that I liked, I used masking tape to secure everything. I then used foam squares along the outside of the edge and kind of around where the wires were to even out the base. I inked the edges of the second cardboard base and then adhered the 2 together. For the banner, I used my Mixed Media Elements dies from Spellbinders and die cut 1 from vellum and 1 from cardboard. Before I took the second one out, the cardboard die out, I stenciled through the die with Jasmine Mixed Media inks and then took it out, and you can see it colored in the center. Then I used my Banners and Words stamp set that is compatible with this die set and inked that with Sparrow chalks. Placed the vellum banner over the stamp, then used a second block to press the vellum evenly into the stamp like you see in that bottom right hand photo. I then used one of the words from that same stamp set and stamped into the center of the banner, and then I used a heat gun to dry it, because even though this is fast drying ink, when you stamp on vellum it does take a little bit longer to dry, so I wanted to make sure it wouldn't smear. Then I used a clear drying glue in the center of the cardboard banner, and I adhered the vellum banner to the cardboard banner. Then I inked around the edges just a little bit with Sparrow and Blue Jay chalks inks. I then added a little bit of bling by using a clear glue around the edges and the sides, and then sprinkled over with my Sugar Shimmer Fairy Dust. To adhere the banner, I used foam squares. I used single squares on the right and left, and then in the center I doubled up on the foam squares because I wanted it to look like it was rounding out away from the house. I then added glitter to the edges of the base, and I worked in small sections because glue gloss does dry pretty quickly. So I would Add a little bit of glue gloss, sprinkle the glitter over it, then work on the next section all the way around until the entire base was glittered. And this is the finished house. And here are some close-ups. I hope that you enjoyed this class, and here are a few places where you can visit me outside of Girly Grunge, and I hope to see you again in some of my future classes as well. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye-bye.